Hi and hello, I am Athena Pondian here. Welcome to the Anatomy for the Biomedical Engineers classroom once again. In this video, we are going to see the next topic of the syllabus, that is cell transport. How the particular cell transport attains and what is the need of the cell transport and what are the different types of cell transport attains, everything we are going to see in this class. Come, let's see the slide. Cell transport. What is the need of the cell transportation? See, we know that all the cell organelles are can able to synthesize some of the proteins, some of the other chemical constituents, everything. Each and every cells need to live. So if we need to live, then the transportation, that is exchange of gases, are required. The moment of carbon dioxide and oxygen required, then only we can able to live. So like that, each and every organelles of the cells want to live. They need some of the transportation of the ions, transportation of the molecules, and the transportation of the synthesized proteins or lipids and everything to out. So for that, the transportations is required. See, this kind of transportation, how it attains? How it attains means that it attains in the two different process. One is according to the energy required that particular transportation occurs, we can able to classify this kind of transportation into two processes. One is passive transport, another one is active transport. The substance inside the chemical, the substance inside the cell that does not require any energy for the moment of time, that is nothing but the passive transport. The substance, they require energy, they input energy from the cell, then only it can able to attain the transport. That kind of process is called as the active transport. So passive transport does not need energy, the active transport much need energy to attain. How the particular passive transport attains transportation? See, without energy, how it attains transport? It's nothing but just take an example of the ball rolling from the hill. The ball rolling from the hill does not require any energy. According to the concentration, it can able to move from the top to bottom. It can move from the higher concentration to the lower concentration because of the gravitational force. So like that, according to the concentration level, the particular substance present in the cell attains the transport. It can able to move from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. According to the concentration level, the particular substance present in the cell attains the transport. It can able to move from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. That is what this particular diffusion process takes place. Some of the hydrophobic molecules like oxygen, carbon dioxide, etc. These kind of molecules, they attain the movement from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. This process is called as a simple diffusion. The second important process is nothing but an osmosis process. Because of it is coming under the passive transport, it also does not require any energy. It is themselves, according to the concentration, it can able to attain the transportation. So here we know that osmosis is nothing but we can able to fix a semi-permeable membrane between the two levels. According to that concentration, it can able to move from this side to this side. How it able to happen? The movement of ion from the concentration level, from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. That particular movement is stopped till the level is equal. The concentration difference is equal till now the process is continuously happens. So like that, come to the osmosis process of the cell. The plasma membrane of the cell is act as a semi-permeable membrane. The best example is water molecules. The water molecules attain the movement from the higher concentration to the lower concentration till the concentration difference from the extracellular and the intracellular is maintained equal. So that is the process happen in the passive transport, second transportation. Then the facilitated diffusion is especially for the molecules is bigger than the hydrophobic molecules and the water molecules. The molecules like glucose, the molecules like ion charged particles like sodium, potassium, chlorine. These are all the molecules are digging higher. They can't able to penetrate. They can't able to attain the movement from the lower concentration to the higher concentration. That is higher concentration to the lower concentration. That kind of molecules can't able to penetrate the plasma membrane because of the size. So that kind of molecules can be attained by this particular facilitated diffusion by means of the transport proteins. Transport proteins are the substance that is present in the plasma membrane itself. This is especially for this kind of molecules, that is bigger molecules. That transport proteins is two different transport proteins are there. One is carrier proteins and the channel protein. The channel proteins can able to open the gate for the purpose of the movement of the ions from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. The carrier transport proteins, it helps the molecules, it bind over the molecules of the higher molecules, then the level of movement is attained. Then the next important major type is active transport. Of course, active transport is nothing but it is an opposite of the passive. The passive does not require energy, but this particular active transport required energy to attain the movement. According to the concentration level, it can't able to move. It required energy to move in and out of the cell. So that kind of substance movement is now coming under this active transport. This particular active transport, the best example of the active transport we can able to say the sodium-potassium pump. Sodium-potassium pump is attained in the plasma membrane of the cell. That particular sodium-potassium pump, it is especially help the sodium to move out of the cell and the potassium to move in the cell with the help of the ATP. Of course, we know that the ATP is generated in the mitochondria itself. That particular ATP helps the sodium and the potassium ion to move in and out respectively. So the sodium ions that is excreted out of the cell, they need to excrete it out of the cell because of the presence of this particular sodium potassium pump with the help of ATP. And the potassium need to come inside the cell. They require some of the energy. That energy can be given by the ATP to pull the particular potassium into the cell through the sodium potassium pump. So this is the best example. This particular active transport without energy, how this particular process is taken place means that vesicle transport, they also called as a vesicle transport. From the cell membrane, the walls of the cell membrane itself, they attain some of the movement. The two different processes of the vesicle transport is nothing but endocytosis and exocytosis. See, some of the very bigger molecules like proteins, they are too large. They are too large than that of the hydrophobic molecule, than that of the water molecule, than that of the charged particles. Some of the proteins are too large. They can't able to penetrate the plasma membrane pores. So that kind of material can able to attain this vesicle transport. This vesicle transport is coming under the active transport. What has happened here is the walls of the plasma membrane itself engulf the material to move in and out. How it happens is, once the protein molecule is coming into the cell, once the protein molecules want to come into the cell, that particular walls of the cell membrane itself, they just engulf the material. They just engulf the protein molecule, and it's just get into the cell. If the protein molecule, some of the two larger protein molecules move out of the cell, the walls of the plasma membrane itself, that engulfing that particular protein molecule to moving out. So the movement is attained with the help of the energy secreted from the plasma membrane itself. The plasma membrane create their own energy to moving the particular protein move in and out. the engulfing of that particular substance that is moving into the cell, it is nothing but endocytosis. The engulfing of the material to moving out of the cell, that is called as a exocytosis. Okay, so in the endocytosis, we can able to say that the two different process. One is phagocytosis and pinocytosis. Endocytosis, of course, we know that the particular protein molecule, there is a too large protein molecule, it is coming into the cell. For that, the plasma membrane itself engulfing the material to moving inside. Okay, so that particular engulfing is attained by the walls of the membrane. That is nothing but the phagocytosis. Apart from the cell membrane, the fluid itself engulfing the material to getting into the cell, that is called as a pinocytosis. So I just repeat. So in the active transport, the best example I say is sodium potassium pump. The main transporting process that place in this active transport is vesicle transport. The vesicle transport is nothing but the walls of the membrane itself taking the transportation. So that kind of transportation occurs in the two different processes, endocytosis and exocytosis. Endocytosis is moving inside the cell, exocytosis is moving outside the cell. How the movement attained, the walls of the plasma membrane itself engulfing the material to getting in or it getting out. So, okay, this is the process of endocytosis and exocytosis. So that's all about the today's class. I hope so you can able to understand the two different types of transport, that is passive transport, active transport. From the passive transport, we have the three difference, that is simple diffusion, osmosis and facilitated diffusion. And in the active transport, the best example is sodium potassium pump, and we can able to say the vesicle transport. In the vesicle transport, we have the endocytosis and exocytosis, and in the endocytosis we have phagocytosis and pinocytosis. So these are all the transportation process happens in the cell. So as a biomedical engineer, you need to remember all these things. All these things you can able to remember, because once you go for all these things, why we are studying this? Because we are totally dealing with equipments. What is the need of studying all these kind of cell level studies? Means that suppose if you want to go for the research as a biomedical research, you need to know all these kind of things. That is what I'm just getting to deeper something what. So the transportation of the cells happens because of these kind of activities. So we'll that's all about the class. Then we see in the next class with a different topic of the syllabus. Thank you.